Hello friends, so today's video is going to be a list of my favorite books of 2021. Before jumping into my favorites, I quickly just want to shout out World Hoppers, which is the collaborative channel I started where all of the AdSense and merch sales go to charity. I'm mentioning it because we just did a best of 2021 video where myself and some other individuals talk about some of our favorite books, so you'll get to see other people's favorites. And in general, we have so many other booktubers who collaborate with us on that channel over there. It's great if you like long format discussions. Sometimes we just yell and argue at each other, but all good fun. But either way, if you've not checked out World Hoppers before, I'll have it linked. Jumping into my favorites, a little bit of an issue I had when trying to make this list is I only have a few books that I'm like, these are new all-time favorites. Oh my gosh, I'm having a book hangover. You know, all of the hype over these books and all those really dramatic reactions. There's only a few that I had those feelings for. I apologize because I feel like this video is redundant. You've heard me probably shout from the rooftops about these books. The first one, just getting it, I was gonna say getting it out of the way, but that's what the case is gonna be for all of these. Winnowing Flame by Jen Williams. I read Ninth Rain last year, loved it. Read The Poison Song and The Bitter Twins. I mixed those up. It's the other way around. But I read books 2 and 3 this year. Oh my gosh. So I have described in depth this plotline before. I'm sure so many of you have heard about it. We follow a society where there's this cycle of war where wars always come back. However, little is known about these wars because it can take sometimes centuries before the wars come back, and the only individuals who live long enough to know the secrets of these wars and to fight back against whoever these invaders are is this particular group of people known as Eborans, which are sort of elven-like. Eventually, the Eborans start feeding on humans, which leads to this other war. Humans are like, I don't like this. And then luckily for them, it turns out human blood has created this plague known as the Crimson Flux among all Eborans who have feasted on humans, of which there have been a lot. So the Eborans are dying off. One of our main characters is a young Eboran, and he has witnessed the effects of the Crimson Flux. However, he hasn't been alive long enough to know the secrets of these other wars that occurred in the past. And there's another character who is an archaeologist type of character who's trying to study these former wars. And then you have a character who's a witch, and you're like, I don't know how you're related to any of this. Your magic's interesting. She's kept in this prison, and her powers are used for the benefit of those who have imprisoned her. And eventually, these plot lines all come together, and the threat of this war that nobody really knows much about might potentially come back, or at least that's your fear the whole time you're reading the first book. So that's the setup for the first one. And then the second one has such a great beginning and such a good ending. It is a little bit, I would say, middle book syndrome, because the middle of that middle book, you know, it does the whole, like, our characters are going on various different missions away from each other sort of a thing, and you're like, come back. But the ending, oh my gosh, of the second one, and then the third one gets so out there, and I know the series already sounds out there. It gets so out there. And the end of the trilogy broke me apart into so many little pieces. It was up late, sad, and then I was sad the next day, and I was like, I need more people to read this series so that I can be sad alongside other people. And I love it so much. I really, really like it. It's epic fantasy. It's amazing. Can you guess what the next couple are gonna be? Let's start with Flamefall. So Flamefall is the sequel to Fireborn. I loved Fireborn. It's a political fantasy that follows what is basically a fantastical version of the Russian Revolution. We have a character who's kind of like the Anastasia type, where their family was a part of the ruling class, and then their family was killed by people who were leading the revolution, and this child went missing, and people believe that this child died. That character's name is Lee, and he grew up in an orphanage after everything that happened to his family. Then we have a character named Annie, whose family was killed by Lee's family when they were in power, so Annie also ended up in an orphanage, and then these two characters meet as children in this orphanage and become friends. And then as they are growing up, they actually start to become fairly prominent members of the new form of government. Rosaria Munda, the author, has a political theory degree from Princeton, and I feel like she uses it so well in this story because the way that she explores the pros and cons, we'll say, of the previous form of government versus this new form of government. In the new one, you get a new perspective, and it dives so much more into the individuals who were not killed during the revolution, but rather exiled. You get those people within this new perspective, and it's really interesting to see how different society looks with these people still kind of in power, but, you know, off in this other area, and those people wanting to come back and get their land back. And I just think it's done so well, and the ways that, I mean, the stakes are just always so high, and the littlest decision can affect people in the most tremendous of ways. Flamefall has some antagonistic characters that I hated, but I loved to hate so much. And the end of the second book is incredible, and I need that third book now. So anyway, loved Flamefall very, very, very much. I think that if you enjoyed the first one, you will likely enjoy the second one as well. Next up, we have the Bonestar Daughter and the Bonestar Emperor. I read both of these in 2021 and loved them. So the first one, there's 2 main characters as well as several side characters. So it's a multiple POV. And the 2 main characters would be Jovis and Lynn, and their perspectives are quite different. Lynn is the daughter of the Emperor. She has lost a lot of her memories, and it's important that she gains them back because the way that the entire realm functions has to do with their magic. When I say their, I mean her father, but she can't really remember what she needs to know to properly use this magic, and so the Emperor isn't sure that he wants her to take his place when he dies, and he has this other individual that he's teaching the magic to, and they're kind of having to go head to head. And then Jovis is this guy who's just looking for his missing wife, and he's kind of gotten in trouble with some, I'm going to call them gangs, and he is just trying to fund his venture to find his missing wife, and sometimes the things he does to try to get some money, they make him end up in some trouble, and then he tries to get out of that trouble, and sometimes he accidentally does super heroic things, and he's like, I'm just trying to just find my wife. He also has this animal companion that is precious. It's so cute. The second one I can't say a whole lot about because a lot of things happen in the first one that I definitely don't want to give anything away for, but I love the second one. I do think the first one feels more like a genre bender, where the second one feels much more like fantasy. I flew through the second one. I think I liked the first one more because I liked the mystery aspect of things, but I still loved both the first and the second. I flew through that second one, and I can't wait for the next one. Another book that the more I think about it, the more I was like, oh, I really liked that. And that would be Spinning Silver. And it kind of sneakily ended up on my favorites. I read it very early in the year, and I liked it when I read it. And I thought that was a good book, and I liked the ending. I liked a lot of the things that the author dived into that were a little bit heavier. For example, there is some abuse that's shown in the story, and the way that one of the characters, the way that they process it and deal with it, and the way that another character ends up sort of helping them, the way that these characters sort of help themselves, the way that they're doing everything they can just to get by, and they find clever and quiet ways to be a little bit more in charge of their own lives. I just feel like the way that Naomi Novik did all of that was very good, while still having this sort of fairy tale retelling, and it's more so a grim fairy tale. The way the magic is woven into it feels very grim, and it's somewhat bleak, and it's very atmospheric, and I like a lot of our characters, and I like the way all their plot lines intertwine, and I just was like, I liked that a lot. The more I think about it, the more I liked it. So it wasn't an, oh my gosh, these characters are my favorite characters ever. And it wasn't a plot that I just had to turn the page for the way that like the Bonestar Emperor was necessarily. I don't think the intrigue was on the level that Fireborn and Flamefall have. But it's a story, like I say this all the time, they're finding these quiet ways to be more powerful. And it's a quiet story, but I think it's really well done. It's a book that at some point I'll probably want to reread. After that is where I'm like, I don't know. Everything else, like those were the standouts for me. And then there were so many other books that I really liked, but I don't know that there's any specific fiction books that I felt quite the way I did about these. But the problem is, the Winnowing Flame trilogy, I read the rest of the trilogy. Flamefall is the sequel to a book I already loved, and then the Bonestar Daughter and Emperor, Bonestar Emperor is the sequel to a book I loved, and I happen to have loved it also in 2021, so it's that I got to spend more time with, I think, a lot of these characters, and I got to see the conclusions to certain things, or left off in really exciting places, but also because of sequels, it meant that I got to spend more time with characters, and so the majority of the books I've already talked about had an advantage too over so many other books. I did a video about some series that I want to continue on with. Basically everything on that list. I enjoyed everything on that list. So we have something like Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. She Who Became the Sun I thought was phenomenal. I really enjoyed The Witch's Heart. I thought Six Crimson Cranes was so precious. Black Sun was very fast-paced. Oh my gosh, what's going on? Very intense, but also filled with kind of strangely lovable characters who might be bad. Anyway, there's so many other books that I really enjoyed. Everything I've mentioned in this video has been fiction. There were some amazing nonfiction books that I read this year. However, I feel a little strange comparing my entertainment or the emotional impact of these fantastical characters. I feel strange comparing that to something like a memoir, which is a real person opening up about their life. So while I did read some incredible memoirs, as well as just great nonfiction in general, I just don't feel comfortable putting it in the same place. I do feel they deserve recognition, so if you're interested in knowing more of my thoughts on some non-science fiction fantasy books, I have a whole video I did about those, so I'll have that linked if you would like to see it. But anyway, that's it for my favorites. I almost didn't want to make this video because I'm like, you've all heard me talk about these so many times, so apologies for being repetitive, but at least maybe it was fun to try and figure out which ones you were probably like, I bet she'll mention these and these and these and these, and you were probably right. But anyway, let me know what your favorite books of 2021 were. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you all later. Bye.